Welcome to another episode of The Brand Called You, a podcast and video show which brings you leadership lessons, knowledge, and experience from hundreds of successful individuals from around the world. If you're new to the channel, please subscribe so you won't miss a new episode. I'm your host, Frits Bussemaker, and today I'm delighted to have a conversation with Wendy Delmar. Wendy, welcome to the program.
Hey, Fritz, it's great to see you. It's great to see you on here. I'm quite excited to be here and speak with your audience.
Thank you. Hey, let me introduce you to the audience so people have a little bit of context already where you're coming from. You have over 20 years experience in mainstream banking. You are the CEO of the Caribbean Association of Banks and the president of the Bankers Association of St. Lucia. Before that, you were a manager at several banks and have a master's in global human resource management at Liverpool. Welcome to the program.
Thank you so much, Fritz. Just one minor edit there. So I previously was the president of the local Bankers Association. That was during my stint, during my long 2-decade run, just over that in banking. And now, as the CEO of the Caribbean Association of Banks, we serve 17 jurisdictions in the Caribbean, with members ranging from as far north as the Bahamas all the way down to Suriname, pretty much everything in between. And I've been doing this now for about 7 years. It's a wonderful experience, and it's been a fantastic platform to have come in from banking with a deep understanding of what the challenges that we face are. So it's been fantastic.
Great. Now, I'm assuming some connections, but I just want to, can you take us through? You started off in human resource management to train yourself as an educator in human resources. How does one then transfer to a bank and transfer to the position of running an association?
Well, your thoughts in terms of how that could work is actually pretty much on point, but my route is quite circuitous. So I actually started off in banking, surprise, surprise, and determined during that 2-year, 20-year period that my passion really is ignited by being able to help individuals achieve the best versions of themselves. And the recognition also that that is not something that happens overnight. So we don't go to sleep today and wake up tomorrow and think, yep, this is it, I've arrived, right? This is a journey and one that has to be nurtured with compassion and understanding and grace, a lot of grace for self, because we will make those unfortunate mistakes along the way. So I started off as a teller, and prior to that, in my teens, I was a teacher.
Yeah.
And that really is where my foundation and my passion for self-development was engendered. I worked with 5-year-old children for that year, and it always fascinates me to this day just how much a child grows in 1 year with the correct guidance. And so I try to overlay that experience in everything that I do and everyone that I encounter. So how do I build on whatever I find? And I try to live by the mantra that whatever you touch and wherever you've been, you leave it better than you found it. So not only in geographical spaces, but in the individuals that I encounter as well. And so where everyone else would perhaps think that there is a degree in banking and finance, that has come through experience. And I have never actually worked purely in the field of HR.
Yeah.
My thesis was written on developing talent in the banking sector. And that is what I have continued to do. And that is what I have continued to find tremendous satisfaction in doing with my teams as I've gone through the ranks. I will share with you that, like I said, I started as a teller. I ended my 20-year career as a manager of one of the largest branches in the English-speaking Caribbean. And during that period, I worked through all of the islands, actually, doing various implementation of technology and so on. But what gave me the absolute greatest reward was in the last few years of my career, where I was the coach for retail and small business. And what that meant is I literally sat with every employee in the institution, from top level leadership all the way down to the tellers, for one full day. And at the end of the day, we would together develop an action plan, which mapped out areas of opportunity. I don't like to use the word challenge, opportunities for the individual's growth and development, and areas that they would continue to build on that have contributed to their success. So for me, these really have been the foundation of what perhaps will become the next leg of my journey, and the next chapter in my life. But I do try to live true to what ignites my passion, which is truly developing people.
Great. And there's so many say hooks in what you just told me in your introduction. So I'm gonna pick one, because when you start to talk about banking, I just want to share a little bit of my own experience in how banking has changed. Is
Okay.
At least what I've seen. I just wanted your take on that. In my job, in my former professional life, I used to visit the Dutch ING bank quite a lot. And if you would initially go to the bank, you could probably go to the bank blindfolded, take off the blindfolded, and this is a bank. This is what a bank should look like. And I see you nodding, so I think you have that idea. And then the IT department was switching from a waterfall method of producing software to a more agile approach. And he said, if we want to truly develop an agile spirit, we not only have to change our methodology, we have to change everything. So we're going to change the way we describe ourselves. We're going to change the functions. We're even going to completely redecorate the building. They broke down walls, put in glass windows, make it as transparent as possible. So I thought that was a very significant change in how the bank wanted to present itself, but also because of that, on the back of that, being able to bring in a more diverse group, more inclusive group of people. And just wanted your take on that observation. Is that something you recognize?
There's no doubt that the aesthetic of banking has changed. We previously, and to your point, and it's really a well executed vision of how banking has changed from pure brick and mortar institutions to a far more friendly sort of open layout, which invites people in. So we've taken down the walls. I think, though, that in spite of a desire to embrace technology and to ensure that we are the agile institutions who are able to respond efficiently to the changing needs of our clientele, we also have, and the CAB has spent quite a little bit of time, including our recently concluded CEO C-suite forum in Miami in June. We have spent quite a significant amount of time looking at how the dynamic and the demographic that we are serving as an institution has changed, but also taking a look at the demographic of persons working within the institution. So COVID has sort of exposed a significant need for revisiting, revamping, reimagining, and unlocking the potential of what is possible within the banking sector. We've recognized now that perhaps for the first time, we are serving a significantly multi-generational gap of clientele. So we're looking at all of the generations, Gen Z, Gen X, and so on and so forth. And we have to figure out, how do we remain significantly engaged with these institutions, especially on the heels of emerging Fintech and new vehicles and instruments of monetary exchange. So all of these things are definitely being taken into consideration as the banking sector continues to evolve. And given that we are operating in perhaps one of the most heavily regulated spaces, we have to remain very vigilant. And to your point, we have to be on our toes in responding to these ever-changing needs, right? It's very interesting that we have seen the emergence of AI taking a far more prominent role in the way that we do business and ensuring the effectiveness and the efficiency and the speed and the savviness that our clients are bringing, right? The one thing that banking is hinged on, or maybe the two things that I believe are more critical as far as managing the relationship between the client and the bank is trust. The element of trust cannot be lost, one. And in spite of the need for, certainly in the Caribbean context, in spite of the need for a more adaptable, user-friendly, overarching experience with digitization and technology, we still find that relationship trumps all. And so we still have to ensure that no matter what sort of technology is implemented, there is a human-like interface between the client and the institution. We still have tremendously long lines and banks in the Caribbean, which perhaps you would frown on. You wouldn't understand if you were to walk into an institution. And we still have customers who walk in to say, I want to talk to someone. I want to see someone, right? And these things are cultural, and they're also what shapes our societies. So we cannot lose sight of these opportunities to ensure that persons who are adverse to technology still have an avenue while creating new pathways for unbanked or underbanked populations and bringing banking to them. I'm very proud to say that we have just concluded the first cohort of digital lab for the Caribbean in conjunction with the IFC and co-funded by the CDB, the Caribbean Development Bank, sorry. So we are recognizing the need to ensure that even our indigenous banks are not left behind in this wave of technological change. And we are taking every effort and making the moves necessary to ensure that we are providing those avenues for all.
Great. Hey, Wendy, you just triggered me a thought, a discussion I had, I believe it was way back in 2017, I believe. I was invited by a major Dutch bank to think about, hey, what would the next generation bank be? And I asked people, so who is your competition?
Mm-hmm.
And I was amazed to see that it was actually the Dutch banks across the road which they saw as competition. So I asked, well, have you considered the major big banks around the world? Because with the age of internet technology, you don't need to have that physical location.
Right.
By the way, what's your take on M-Pesa? And I had to explain to them what M-Pesa was. I was talking to people working for a bank, and I had the same discussion not only in Europe, also at the big banking conference in California a couple of years ago, where I had to explain what M-Pesa is. And for the audience out there who do not know what M-Pesa is, it's actually invented in Africa, where you're using your mobile phone credits to bank, to pay somebody. And then you see that all of a sudden, Africa is leapfrogging with technology, and a telco company is basically becoming your competitor and not another bank.
Yeah.
And what's happening? Because you mentioned we also want to service the underprivileged, and that made me think about completely new ways to support these people. Is that the traditional, or do you see this new competition coming in?
Oh, absolutely. So, I believe that in everything, our biggest competitor should be ourselves. So let's start there, right? We should always aim to do things better than we did at the last cycle of review. So we start there based on resources and so on. We also have to be very mindful that while we are not the only players in the market, there's a reason why our customers continue to come to us. And again, it goes back to trust and relationship. But that said, we also have to find ways to remain operationally viable in a very, very vastly and fast-paced changing world, right?
Yeah.
In the context of the Caribbean, we still find penetration rates pretty low, perhaps lower than where we would like it to be, and we are still very much a cash-driven society. The opportunities for us are, of course, to embrace the new technological enhancements that are coming our way, but we also have to be very mindful. So we sort of have to weigh things out in terms of how quickly do we adopt and adapt whatever is coming our way. One, we have to ensure that we are culturally sound in adopting new technologies, it has to make sense in our Caribbean context,
Yeah.
right? I know you have a question.
Yeah. When you talk about the Caribbean context, can you actually put everything in one basket? Because I'm assuming it's not as homogeneous as you're describing it.
Right. So what we find are very small islands with limited populations to drive the profitability of some of these adoptions,
Yeah.
right? And that varies significantly. For countries like mine, where we are primarily tourist driven, in this environment, I can leave to your imagination what is happening on the global scale and how it impacts countries like mine, right? How it impacts the desire for travelers to actually leave one country and come across to St. Lucia.
Yeah.
St. Lucia is 238 square miles with a population of 180,000 people thereabouts. Yeah, that gives you a sense of what our GDP perhaps could potentially look like. And we are fraught with the usual issues of, cyclical tourism arrivals, how much do they spend, cruise ship arrivals versus overnight stays, and so on and so forth. I won't go too much into that. But what we have found, and perhaps what we will continue to explore, is open AIs. How do we actually partner with some of the upcoming fintech organizations to ensure that we are meeting the needs of our people in the most financially viable setting, right? Let's go back a step and remember, because this is critical, that we are very heavily regulated. And so we also have to be very careful about who do we partner with? What do they bring to the table? What does expatriation of profits look like for them and the impact on us, right? What the Caribbean Association of Banks does is we try to identify some of those partners that we can bring to our members en masse with scalable opportunities for their implementation. So we sort of act as the gel, if you will. We go out, examine the relationships, bring them to the members, and then we take it from there. And that is exactly what would have happened with the IFC, right? This is a product that we believe our members will benefit from. There are a couple others that we are working on that our members will be able to benefit from a Caribbean-wide perspective as opposed to from an institution base, which makes it more expensive, which makes it a little bit more challenging for them to do the necessary compliance checks to ensure that the institutions that they are getting involved with are suitable for Caribbean existence, basically.
Okay. When you describe what you're doing from the Caribbean Association of Banks, is that very hands-on for you, or is that delegated to a team?
Oh, that's very hands-on. I'm very, very proud of the work that my 5-member team does. We are a very small institution, and 5, including myself. We take on the advocacy for the Caribbean banking sector. And that has landed us in some wonderful places and meeting fantastic and massively influential people in Washington, in the UK. We've had the benefit of speaking with persons on the continent of Africa and more further afield. We also do all of the training, bespoke training. We arrange training for our members so that as they identify needs unique to their institutions, we go out and suss out speakers and trainers who are skilled in the various areas that they are looking for support with and bring those trainings to life. We put on 2 conferences annually, and those are fantastic opportunities not only to network, but also to get global perspectives on what is happening around us and how those events impact us. We also look at the Caribbean context, and then we marry the two. And that is our opportunity to sort of take a visionary look at what do banks need to be doing in the Caribbean today to ensure their sustainability and viability to tomorrow. And then we also, as much as possible, do the necessary research, because one of the critical areas that we find particularly challenging in our region is there is a lack of data. And I hope that with the emergence of various technologies, we will see that organically begin to address itself, but there has to be a thrust. there has to be a thrust to ensure that the information that we are getting and the information that we are utilizing to make critical decisions is pure and is correct. And so in that vein, what the CAP does also is we offer 2 scholarships annually. But in an effort to drive that research decision and the decisions that will be made from the information that we have, we are going to be launching a Future Leaders program where we will utilize the scholars and also students from across the jurisdiction in conjunction with some of our institute partners. We will give them problem statements based on what we see as, most critical to the region now, and have them be the research model. They will drive the research and present, light white papers, so to speak, and
Yeah.
perhaps those will be developed in partnership with some of our more significant research partners across the region. And that will be one of the ways that we will be able to drive and direct information gathering and sourcing, of course, to ensure that we are making the right decisions based on pure empirical data.
Good. Hey, by the way, is this, I have making an assumption again, but is this what you're doing? Is that like almost like a vocation or just a job? Is this for you 24/7?
This is 24/7. Most people think that this is one of those part-time jobs, but it does come with quite a bit of planning, particularly for the advocacy that we do. The role has changed significantly in terms of the ask and the need.
Yeah.
And that is in direct response to how the world is changing and how the world is evolving. And again, given the scope that I shared with you on St. Lucia, the size,
Yeah.
it is critical that we retain our seat at the table, as the world says now, one of those buzz phrases. So it is a 24/7 job.
So how do you
It
then
is
balance that with how do you balance then private work life if it's 24/7?
The private work life, again, is driven by, like I said at the very beginning, this is a nice tie-in. I'm very passionate about developing people. And I think that one of the opportunities that we have in the Caribbean is really to nurture and develop our small business sector. That is a passion area of mine. It has been for many, many years now. And I know that one of the challenges that they face is being unbankable or less than attractive then to the banking sector because of the particular level of risk that they present. And to a large measure, and this is strictly personal, to a large measure, small businesses are the passion of creatives. A creative will have a vision that they want to do something and they'll get it started. What is often lacking is the structure in how to go step by step in making this seed something bigger, what it can potentially be. And I hope that the work that I have been doing with some of my small business clients is where they will find the structure that they need to ensure that this small seed, which is embedded in their mind and their passion, really takes shape and does what it is meant to do, which is supposed to augment the work of the larger institutions, but really driving the mainstay of the smaller societies and providing the employment and offsetting the cyclical income that comes from the main income drivers in our economies.
Yeah.
How do I balance it,
Yeah.
Fitz?
Yeah.
Well, that's passion. That's where the
Passion.
vocation.
Yeah.
That's actually the vocation for me, right? Because
Okay.
it is what drives
Then the
my
question,
soul.
yeah, okay. Then the question which you triggered me with that response is, have you planned to do this for a particular period and say, look, this the same way I advise SMEs to plan out what they're going to achieve. Are you doing the same for yourself, for your personal life, or you say, no, I'm just going to jump in the deep end, see how far I get, and I'll make the decision when I get there?
So I've actually started. So this has been in planning for a little bit. I'm actually going to demit this office later this year. My contract comes to term in November. And as I have gone through the process, my small clientele has continued to grow. I'm very fortunate in that there is the small businesses also recognize this as a significant need. This is not only intended to service St. Lucia, but certainly the opportunity exists. You and I met in New York, Fritz,
Yeah.
at a small business conference. And so the need is way beyond what we see, well, what I see in St. Lucia. And so far, the clientele and the outreach has also been growing beyond the borders of my home base.
Yeah. But does that
And
mean
so,
you accept people coming to you and then decide, okay, I'm going to accept this or not? Or do you
yeah,
proactively seek that?
absolutely. So far, I've been very fortunate that they have been coming to me. And
Yeah.
because this is my 24/7 role at the cab, I have not been actively going after clients.
Do you have
That
an idea?
drive will begin
Okay.
in earnest
Yeah.
shortly.
Good. So do you have an idea how you can get into a situation that people are calling you rather than you have to do a lot of legwork to get people to know who you are?
So there is a marketing strategy that will be employed once I'm a little freer.
Yeah.
But for right now, I'm very comfortable with the clients that I'm working with and the word of mouth that's been happening because it is growing a little faster than I anticipated, the demand that is. So again, once I'm able to demit office, there is a small team of women who are quite well educated and ready to jump in as well because they have the same passion and drive. So this
Good.
is going to be beyond just one individual trying to run this show.
I really appreciate the fact that you're already looking at succession planning, how you can make certain this continues.
Absolutely.
I still want to come back to the question. So, how did you end up by generating word of mouth, and that people, as a result, are calling you up? Is that just
Right.
being in that position of the CEO of the Caribbean Association of Banks? Is that what it is, or is there something else? Because I think that's a question the audience might have: is how do you get people to call you?
Right. I think that that has come from my authentic leadership in the past. And so this really is my very first client is someone that I interfaced with in my banking days. And my clients know that I will put their needs first. In spite of the role, I will marry what is possible with the organization and the need to ensure that the client is better off when I have concluded our relationship. So the individual that I speak with waited for 5 years so that I could come in because she knows that I would be very straight faced in telling her what can work and what cannot. I'm very clear in setting strategic objectives with my clients so that they understand exactly what they were getting into from the beginning, and we pace things, we phase things because not everything is possible. Depending on the size of the institution, you do have to take a very measured approach in what is being offered to one client vis-a-vis the other. And my clients know that I will adjust to target, to
Okay,
suit.
but it could be like almost like a cultural barrier for some, because what I'm hearing you say is just be honest, be straight,
Absolutely.
and on the long term, people start to appreciate that. There are cultures out there where being as honest and open as you are is difficult.
It can be difficult, but it is critical. And it is critical to trust and relationship. And those two things I don't let go of. And those two things are very important. But also, I think what has really catapulted the word of mouth referrals is that success is guaranteed. If you stay true to the plan that we agree to, your success and change becomes very evident very quickly. And so the two clients that I work with more specifically now are, I would say that they are constantly in a state of celebration. Yes, there are stressors, but these are expected based on where you want to go. So as long as they're committed to making it happen. And the other thing is, I am really not doing this for financial gain. This for me is legacy. So there are a couple of things. The company that I have registered is called Unlocked Limited because it truly is about unlocking the potential that I see within the institutions that I want to work with, the small businesses. And the other one is called Legacy Consulting Inc. because it really is about creating a footprint that is going to see us as small businesses continue to thrive and grow, right? And become what the banks are looking for. Part of what I've done with the Caribbean Association of Banks is I've actually started one day attached to the conference that is built or geared towards supporting small businesses and providing workshops where the banks will come in as a partner to help address the issues that they see within the small business banking sector. If it is that the small businesses need to be trained on preparing and reading financial statements, that will be on the agenda. The other part of it is a marketplace. So we actually provide the small businesses an avenue to sell and to showcase their products. So it is very intentional when I go into a small business and take a look at what is happening, how you're structured organizationally and operationally. And then we begin to sort of claw back where necessary or strengthen, depending on what we see.
Wendy, a good way, this, I mean, this is very much about planning your success, guarantee success, as you mentioned that. Somehow I cannot accept that it's always been a success. There has to be a couple of brilliant failures in your life where you feel, oh, that's why I screwed up, but that was the lesson I learned.
Right. Yeah, there have been quite a few of those, Chris. How much more time do we have?
Just one, just out of curiosity. I just want it makes you human.
It makes me human. It makes our story very rich and very authentic because people have to understand that we do need to feel fast in order to progress quickly. There have been, like I said, quite a number of those where I've sat back and thought, yeah, that definitely is not a moment to be proud of, but it is part of my journey, so I embrace it. There are a few things. One of them that I would probably want to focus on is planning. Most people who know me say that I'm super organized and I'm great at planning things. That wasn't always the case. And perhaps still there's opportunity. We have to take into consideration, especially in the small business sector, that we are typically an institution of one. And when I say an institution of one, our employees rest on our shoulders, our families rest on our shoulders. And so it is critical that we take care of ourselves first so that we are stronger for the people around us. And that comes with planning for health, making sure that we are taking the mental breaks, making sure that we're taking the family time, making sure that our employees are also taking the necessary steps so that they can contribute and be super productive at the office and the institutions and so on. That for me, the reality of that came for me a few times over. In 2012, I would have had my first major medical scare, which resulted in me being out of circulation, as they say, for about 6 weeks. I had a repeat of that in 2015. And then I had what I consider to be a life-changing event encountered in 2016 with the sudden loss of my husband. And that left me with three small children, three boys that I'm very, very proud of now, two men and one boy. But it also speaks to resilience. It also speaks to having the opportunity every now and again to sit down and still all the noise around us so that we can recenter and refocus and reorganize and continue to move forward. So for me, those all came around health. For us, these things will come around different events. It may be health, it may be financial, it may be, every other factor that possibly comes our way. The most important thing for me and the most important lessons really are the opportunity to sit quietly with yourself. Try to remember why you got on this journey in the first place. Why am I on this path? What was the igniting factor for me that said this is where you need to be? And determine whether or not this truly is still your passion or your calling, depending on where you're looking at it from. And what steps do I need to take today, not only to address the issue that you're facing, but also sort of taking a bird's eye view of the rest of it and realigning where necessary, right? Some people continue on this path and you can see clearly it's a path to destruction, but they keep going at it because, this is where I want to be. Sometimes progress actually is stepping back, right? I believe in the dance that we do in life. If you think about square dancing, salsa, kizomba, whatever it is that you enjoy, there are steps that you take. Some steps are forward, some steps are 2 steps forward, 3 steps back, some steps are, lateral and so on. you have to figure out and agree and give yourself the grace that in order for us to progress every now and again, it's either we stay exactly where we are for a minute and then move. And movement is either backward, forward, or across sideways. The important thing is never to stop moving, right? You take that break, you do the necessary introspection, and then you take a step forward again. That's those are the critical lessons that I've learned and the beautiful lessons that I embrace. They're all part of my journey, and I would not change any of them, perhaps one. But generally speaking, keep a sunny disposition. Don't let life get you down, and certainly don't let it spill over to the other people that you encounter
Yeah.
because you're having a moment.
Hey, Wendy, these are excellent. This is excellent advice to our audience out there. I'm going to ask. I'm going to end this the great discussion with one question. It is the brand called you. I'm just wondering, what's your brand? How do you want people to remember you?
Oh, fantastic. I love that question, and I'm happy to be able to put this out there. I want to be remembered for being authentic, transformational, and all embracing. And when I say all embracing, it goes back to what we just ended with. Take the good with the bad. Let it always be the factor that builds you, um, and embrace every facet of your life. So I really do want to be seen as the authentic transformationalist. I believe that in all of our lives, there's opportunity to do better and to be better. But if we're constantly shying away from and hiding when things go wrong, we don't have the opportunity to build the legacy for ourselves and for others. People learn sometimes, hopefully, from other people's mistakes. We don't all have to fall into that trap to learn that it's a trap, right? If we talk about it and we highlight it, we have the opportunity to affect one life positively. And so that is what I really want to be known for, movement.
Unlocking. Hey, Wendy,
Unlocking, absolutely.
I want to thank you so much for sharing your valuable insights with the brand called you, and thank you for your time.
It's been an absolute pleasure, Fritz. Anytime, call on me, and I will be happy to sit with you again. It's been awesome.
Thank you for listening to the Brand Called You videocast and podcast, a platform that brings you knowledge, experience, and wisdom of hundreds of successful individuals from around the world. Do visit our website www.tbcy.in to watch and listen to the stories of many more individuals. You can also follow us on YouTube, Facebook, Instagram, and Twitter. Just search for the Brand Called You.